Mr. Curtis for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Madam Secretary, great to have you here. I'd like to first of all give you a shout out for your work with me and the Conservative Climate Caucus for visiting us and realizing that we have a lot of things in common. I'll just suggest that I think we can all agree we're looking for affordable, reliable, clean power. We want the U.S. to lead on that. Let me talk today about a subject that's important to all of us: nuclear energy, and how do we get this rolling. I have a bill. It's called the Advanced Nuclear Reactor Prize Act. Waives the fees for first movers to help them successfully license and deploy. I'm extremely excited about the potential of our next generation nuclear, and have seen firsthand the difficulties. We had an agency in Utah called UAMPS, conglomeration of cities trying to get a small nuclear reactor. They were about 10 years into it, halfway through the permitting process, $100 million into it, and just had to walk away from it. And I think we can all agree that we've got to figure out, right, how to make that not happen. And my bill would fix this in part by authorizing you, the Secretary of Energy, to make targeted awards to cover regulatory costs of the first new nuclear technologies that are licensed and operational. And I'm wondering if you could talk for just a minute about how you see incentivizing nuclear and how do we get this thing rolling?
So much, and thank you for voting for the 24 budget, which did some of that for small modular reactors. I think there was $1 billion in there for $800 million for the reactors, and then some workforce funding as well. Super important, but $800 million may not cover a full suite of 6-pack or 10-pack of small modular reactors, and no utility wants to be the first of a kind. They want to be the nth of a kind, and so the question is, how do we bundle them together to make the situation like UAMPS not happen again? UAMPS, of course, involved an advanced nuclear reactor, and the Congress has been very generous in supporting a couple of those as well. You know, we have to recognize that nuclear technology as clean baseload power is very important to our energy mix. It currently occupies 20%, almost 20% of our overall energy supply, and we need more. But we also have to make sure that we continue to drive the prices down, the expense of that, the capital expense of the first ones. And this is why I think the combination of the data centers combined with some of these SMRs together give both the technology companies who have some funding, and not you giving technology companies funding. Technology companies have the funding and can afford to be able to do some of those small modular reactors in partnership with their data centers so that they're not pulling from the grid. Bottom line is, nuclear is a very important piece of things. The nuclear, the uranium funding that was just approved yesterday in the Senate, hugely important to be able to create a uranium strategy, a HALEU strategy for these next generation reactors. Thank you for your leadership.
Let's talk about just permitting reform in general for a minute. I think we can all see that permitting reform is this huge obstacle to where we're going. I want to brag about Utah for a minute. I mean, almost every energy source that you can imagine, and even storage of that in Utah. And yet, everybody keeps coming to me, as they probably do to you, we can't get these permitted. And I realize a lot of this is outside of the scope of DOE, but you do invest in many of these technologies that will someday be deployed to scale. And how does permitting reform have an enabling effect on your projects, and what can you say to us about how we move forward on this permitting reform issue?
I appreciate Congress's willingness in a bipartisan fashion to at least continue to work on that. In the meantime, this administration is trying to do what it can from an administrative point of view. So we just passed a rule that allows for us to have a 2-year cap on permitting for transmission on public lands. It's called SITAP. I'm excited about that, announced that in Utah, as a matter of fact. We're pleased about being able to move forward how we can. But having a shot clock like that embedded in law, I think would be important because it organizes people. The ability to have one office be the point person for projects as opposed to having developers go to multiple offices is an important step that would be helpful in law. It's certainly what we're trying to do on the administrative side. The ability to make sure that we have categorical exclusions in already developed areas for for the development of generation. Those kinds of things are very important. It's what we're trying to do as an administration, but it would be great to have it in law.
And I'm sorry we're out of time, but would love to continue to work with you on all of those things. Thank you.
Thank you.
Gentleman's time to expire.